That's amazing. And the amazing thing is that those spoiled peaches were actually spoiled peaches from the farm, and your actors were just so method that they ate them and just threw up for days, right? Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch Your Past. Today I'm talking to Cory Choy, the co-writer and director of Esme My Love, which comes to digital and on demand on June 2nd, 2023. I'm going to talk to him right now, and while you're watching, if you can like and subscribe to this channel, that would be fantastic. I'll spend a lot. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining me. This is Cory Choy, the co-writer and director of Esme My Love, which comes to digital and on demand on June 2nd, 2023. It is just a lovely like family outing tale where nothing bad happens at all. Everyone is perfectly fine and healthy and sane, and it's just wonderful. So I can't wait to talk to you more about it. Let's dig into this story and this film.
Yeah, it's just all sunshine and rainbows, and Care Bears was the primary inspiration. No, but no, thank you so much for having me, and yeah, it's really exciting to be here.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting film. It definitely feels very heartfelt. Is like I describe it as kind of like a dark fairy tale because you've got like this kind of like overarching narrative. You've got this interesting like family setting, but then there's some supernatural-ish kind of elements that come in, but it never really gets to that like horror realm. It's kind of uses those supernatural elements to like explore, I don't know, I guess life horrors, like horrors about family and people. So it's just a really beautiful film and a very kind of interesting one. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you about it.
Yeah, it's a magical realism, psychological thriller. Um, I would say it borders on horror, but isn't an outright horror film by any means. It is filled with a whole lot of love and and there's a point in every person's life where they realize that their parents are not infallible.
Mhm.
And that's always a very pivotal moment for somebody when it's a real coming of age moment, and it's a moment where you really have to assert yourself as a person. And this movie in part explores that, and it also explores the mother-daughter relationship and duality.
Mhm.
How much of you is in me, in that sort of thing, and and just kind of there are a lot of things in a relationship one has with their mother, or specifically a daughter has with their mother, that really just words aren't particularly adequate to fully describe. And so I think it takes all the facets of filmmaking, the music, the sound,
Mhm.
the image, along with some words, but really in tandem, once you put those all together in this film, I think you start beginning to have the visceral sense of just the tension and also the love between a mother and a daughter.
Yeah, that is a good way to describe it, the tension and the love, because that is kind of this film in a nutshell. I read in the notes that this was inspired by true events. I know you're a co-writer. There was another writer also. Like, if you don't mind, like what were those true events that kind of like inspired you to then write this film, or inspired like the original writer to write this film, and then you kind of like came on to help finish? Because I was very curious about that because it definitely felt like a personal story, but like you said, it's magical realism, so there's some supernatural-ish, some like other elements that come in as well to this like very personal family story.
Well, that I think that's what's so cool about it is the supernatural is the true event. There's really two kernels to this film, to the inception of the idea of this film. The first is uh, a woman recounted to me something that when she told it to me, it absolutely horrified me,
Mhm.
and it was something having to do with her daughter, and I said, wow, that's just absolutely horrifying. And she said, no, 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 this was actually the most one of the most important and beautiful moments in my entire life,
Oh wow.
because I saw an angel, and I saw it was one I was filled with a sense of understanding and peace that I've never felt again in my life. And I remember her recounting what happened to me, and I was like, that sounds just absolutely horrifying. She said, no, it was the most wonderful thing that ever happened to me. And that really stuck with me, how from the outside, a truly religious or magical experience is going to be very, very different from the inside. And then I took that and said, well, there's also two sides of that experience, right? There's the person experiencing the wonder, but then there's the other person, and how does it feel for them? So I like to explore how the same thing can be experienced by two different people very, very differently. So that's one part of the story. And then the second part of the kernel of the story is, and this is one of the things I just really fell in love with. I was shooting a music video up in Hague, New York, and that's on the border of New York and Vermont. And we are just on this beautiful property. And the drummer is the one whose family property it was, Alex. And his mother, Sally, is one of three. There's Sally, Sherry, and Susan Delarme. And it was the old Delarme family farm. And this place is just absolutely incredible. And you go on this property, and there's dilapidated structures. There's this incredible lake and this farmhouse. And I got to talking to Sally, who's also the town historian, and many of the stories in the aspects of this film are borrowed from the Delarme family history. So they actually had a great either grandmother or aunt or something named Hannah,
Uh-huh.
and she had a St. Christopher's medal. And actually, the one we used in the film was the actual St. Christopher's medal that belonged to Hannah, that was, 100 or so, or 100 more years old.
Oh wow,
And
that's crazy. That's amazing.
many of the stories, the family stories that bordered on the fantastical, but that were also just like, oh man, one time Uncle Pete went in the basement and he tried one of those cans of peaches, and they'd been there for a while. Like, those are all stories from the Delarme family, the Delarme family. And so I borrowed a lot of their actual stories and shot on their family farm, and incorporated a lot of their history into my character's history. It's not a one-to-one, but for instance, the bottle cap is the real Delarme family dairy bottle cap.
Oh wow.
The St. Christopher's medal, some of the things in the treasure box were some of Hannah's actual effects. And so it was really fun. I brought Laura, my co-writer, to the farm, and we slept at Sherry's house for a couple days, and we just talked and with everybody there, and they were really open and really nice. And so it's not exactly one person from their family, but I would say there's an amalgamation of many people from that family in this film.
That's amazing. And the amazing thing is that those spoiled peaches were actually spoiled peaches from the farm, and your actors were just so method that they ate them and just threw up for days, right?
Well, what's funny though, actually, you do mention the peaches, except for a few prop peaches we brought in, all those jars were actually in there in that basement for a
Oh
long
wow.
time. So that basement actually looks like that. That farmhouse, we did dress it a little bit, but that is the old farmhouse. And so we wrote to the space rather than trying to fit the space to our writing.
Mhm. What a wonderful kind of find, right? Because you didn't really, it seems like you didn't have to do much to make this look both kind of like beautiful and run down. It has the perfect look for a person coming back to the family farm and like being able to see it through
Um,
two different eyes. Like it's
I'm glad it doesn't feel like we had to do much.
okay.
We didn't do we didn't do a lot in that we didn't like bring cranes in or everything, and we did use a lot of things that were actually there. But I do have to credit my art department, particularly my production designer Kyra Baselli, and actually her. There's only two. It was a two-person art department. It was
Oh,
Kyra and
wow.
Jackie, and they were absolutely incredible. While they weren't necessarily fabricating a whole lot of things, they were moving things around. Right before we shot the front of the house, I was like, guys, this doesn't feel old. And they're like, oh gosh. And they just like were like putting mud all over the front of the house, like, let's get this. Like, and they did it with such care, but so quickly. Kyra and Jackie really pulled the weight of what I would say most people would expect like a 5-person team to do.
Oh wow.
They were absolutely incredible, and they were just like they were in it to win it, like everybody else. So I really have to credit for an indie film. You really can't make you can't make a film without just the best collaborators. And so our art department, our camera department, like everybody really brought their A game, and they were not being paid like Hollywood. I'll tell you that it was an independent film. But we feel, and I feel that we were able to achieve something that really is very beautiful. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, and I would echo that. Like, it's a beautiful, beautiful film, and it's one that feels like, some indie films you'll look at it and you can kind of tell it wasn't made with like I don't know, like the best cameras, or there's a certain look to it that doesn't look, I don't know, professional is not the right word, but you can definitely tell if something is like has like a high quality camera or a kind of like middle quality camera. And this, it looks beautiful. It looks as good as like anything else, and the kind of care that was taken with the shots and the nature and just kind of the way that this whole thing is presented is immediately apparent from the start.
That's a real testament to my director of photography, Fletcher. She, and I say this, it sounds a little hyperbolic, but I really do mean it. I think she is one of the best living cinematographers. She was given a very limited tool set for my film, and she made it she made it sing. If you gave her whatever she wanted in whatever scenario, she will bring so much to the table. So much of the look is a testament to just how detail oriented, but also professional and creative Fletcher is. It was a real collaboration working with her, and she's just phenomenal.
Yeah, that's impressive. I mean, yeah, like I think the first thing I said in my review, which isn't published yet, but it will be probably by the time this comes up, is like the first thing that I noticed is the cinematography, and it really kind of draws you into this story and really gets you kind of invested in what is happening, just because it's so beautiful. You kind of want to like live in this world.
And that makes me really, really happy because for most of my professional career, I am a director and a producer, but a lot of people know me for my sound work.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to set out to make something really beautiful and terrible. Not terrible as in like terrible, but terrible as like in the biblical sense.
Yeah.
And I think Fletcher helped me do that. And we only had a $90,000 shooting budget.
Oh
So
wow.
we had a very,
That's
very, very limited, very, 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 very limited budget. And I think we were able to achieve so much with so little, and in large part because of her, but also because of my B unit cinematographer, Bob Jones. I gave him basically nothing. I was like, Bob, here's the camera body. Here's the lens that Fletcher isn't using right now. Go shoot a bunch of stuff that without characters in it. So he did a lot of the nature shots, anything without the character, or many of the things without the characters in the frame. And I mean, he didn't even have a proper tripod with him. He had a sandbag, this kind of like heavy secondary camera body, this lopsided lens, and he and AR, the other member of the unit, they really went at it, and it was incredible and incredibly lucky. Fletcher and Bob have worked together in the past, and so she was able to, with very, very few instructions, make sure that he knew what to get and how to get it. And that's what comes from a true professional. She didn't have hours and hours to give him instructions. Otherwise, she would just have to do it herself.
Yep.
She was like, okay, Bob, this is what we're doing. This is the thing. Go for it. And she had that trust in him, and he had the ability to deliver with like no equipment. And it was very, very, pretty amazing.
Indie filmmaking at its finest. I love that. I love that everything just kind of came together. And yeah, no, that is impressive. That because when you have an indie film, there's so many pots on the stove or whatever you want to call it. There's so many plates in the air that you can't micromanage everything. So it's really great that he was just able to like go off and do it and just trust that it was going to get done, and you didn't have to worry about like pushing the schedule or having to reshoot it. Like you're just able to get it done and kind of focus on the other stuff.
Yeah, we didn't. We had a very limited shooting schedule, so we only had 13 days of principal photography,
Oh wow.
and so we had to get a lot done. So the film would never have been made without that beat.
Yeah. And you mentioned how your background is in sound. I noticed that when I went to the IMDb profile, and I think it fits. I don't know how involved you were, but the other thing I really loved, well, there's a lot of things I love about this film, but one thing that really kind of stuck out to me is the music. Like the music is similar to the cinematography. It's like haunting and beautiful and kind of has dreamlike aspects, but sinister aspects, and it kind of toes that line really well. So, were you
Thank you.
involved with that, with the music and the sound choice, or did you have someone help you with that? I'm just kind of curious about that as well.
I was heavily involved with the music. The song at the end, I knew that I wanted to use from the very beginning. When we wrote the piece, we're like, this is the last shot. This is the song that's going to play. This is how long it's going to take. And I knew it because Charlotte Littlehills, one of the composers, was the first person I recorded as a kid and played music with in high school in a band together. And
Mhm.
I thought I was going to be a professional musician. We were going to be in a band together. Well, she is a professional musician. I am not a professional musician. But one thing from the time I was pretty young, from like, I don't know, eighth grade on, um, her voice really, to me, is one of the most just beautiful things in the world. And I knew from the start that it was going to have to be her voice that would be a window or a bridge into Hannah's love and her heartbreak.
Mhm.
And there's nothing else in the world that could work besides Charlotte's voice there. Then my other composer, um, Stephanie Griffin, she is incredible as well. She's from the Momenta Quartet. She leads the Momenta Quartet. She was brought in to take everything and bring the tension in everywhere and bring in the skin crawling and the dissonance, but also the song that we used at the end
Mhm.
was written by my friend Jake when he was in middle school, and it's the first song that I ever recorded with Charlotte, and I knew that was the song. This isn't the recording of it, but we re-recorded it. But we knew that that was going to be the song, and it was also going to be a song in the movie. So we opened the movie with that song, and we closed the movie with that song, and uh, everything melodically is related. Everything in between the score. So, for instance, when we have our first supernatural moment, it sounds almost like the viola is it's almost like bird like
Mhm.
when it's playing. It's an inversion of that melody.
Oh,
So
interesting.
every single piece of music in the entire film is melodically related to that song. And so I wanted it to feel both melodically and emotionally, it was leading to that catharsis at the end.
Mhm.
And so emotionally and melodically, the music builds pretty much to that ending song, and everything is related to it.
That is fascinating, and also probably saves on royalty fees because
No
everything is
royalty, yeah.
really.
Well, I had to call up. I had to find Jake, who wrote the song in middle school, and I really found his mom on Facebook, and then I found Jake, and Jake was just like, "Hey," and I was like, "We haven't talked in like 20 years." He's like, "Yeah, how are you?" It's like, "Can I use that song?" And he's like, "Sure." And I was like, "Cool." And then I haven't really spoken to him since. It was really nice of him.
That's
Um,
that's awesome. You hear so many stories about indie films where like there's a song that they want to get and they're not sure they're going to be able to secure the rights, so they kind of have like that and then maybe a backup just in case, and then you kind of like
Oh yeah,
comes
no,
together
no.
at the end.
I knew. Yeah, exactly. I knew the song that I wanted was the voice that I wanted was Charlotte, and we'd worked on a film like 10 years prior, and I just knew she was into it and she was down. I mean, it
Mhm.
was a very, very, very long composing process, and it was. I was really lucky that both she and Stephanie were down to just make mountains of music that we would sometimes throw out. um, but towards the end, once we had the bones, then Stephanie came in for I think like an 18-hour in a row session, and we laid down a lot of stuff.
Oh wow.
She brought in Hillard Green on the double bass, and we did like an 18-hour session, and it was wonderful. And then I sat on it for a week, and I was like, oh, can you come back? And we did another 18-hour session.
Oh my
And
gosh.
there was a lot of pressure for our first film festival screening. And so we got it done with that pressure. So it's like we had been like, so like, oh, we'll do this over the period of 6 months or whatever, or a year, and we're slowly working on it and palette this and that. And then at the end, I was like, hey Stephanie, can we just come in and just like go at it for a few days? And I'm very, very grateful that she likes dumplings as much as I do. So I was able to apply her with dumplings, and she was in it to win it. I'm very grateful for that.
That's fantastic. And yeah, you gotta use what you can. You have a small budget, so you gotta at least make that money count. Sounds like dumplings is the way to go. Like the good, payment bribe, whatever you want
Oh,
to call
the
it, to get
good,
this stuff.
the good dumplings. Yes, this
Yeah.
is you can't do any like frozen pot stickers. You've got to go to like Excellent Dumpling House or
Mhm.
Shan Famous Foods. You got to get the good ones.
Just hints and tips for all the indie filmmakers out there. There you go. um, Another thing that like struck me is that this film only has like two actors. They kind of have to sell the entire story and keep the audience engaged throughout this film. It's not a short film. It's like an hour 45 or so. How did you find them, and like how did you like know that you could trust them to like be these characters and kind of create this world that you had?
um, I mean, Audrey, when we worked together, I believe she may have been 8 when she auditioned, but
Mhm.
when she actually did the film, she was 9. She's very young. But even at that point, I mean, I truly believe that she is a talent that is few and far between.
Mhm.
Audrey is really, I have yet to work with another child actor that had that just, I don't even know what to say what it was, but
It-
it was,
it's
she was
it's very
incredibly fun to
natural.
work.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
she's very natural. Sometimes you get child actors that like you can tell that they're trying to have a performance, but she felt like she was fully in the moment, and it didn't. There was never like a break or like a dissonance in there. It just felt like you were watching, a kid in this exact situation.
and it's funny because between shots she'd bust out her toy unicorn and crack everybody up, and and, and had like her own little totem for the day that she'd or stuffy that for the day that she'd carry around. But I think it's a real testament to both her, but also when you're working with a child actress, you're also working with their manager or their coach. In this
Mhm.
case, it was her mother, Heidi. And I'm working with Audrey. I'm also working with Heidi, and they had a process down that was just basically like, we're not going to rehearse the lines
Wow,
almost
perfect.
at all. We're going to come in and we're going to do it, and we can do more takes. But Audrey always really wanted to do it. Like if she would get frustrated if we had to do more than 1 or 2 takes. Sometimes I'd come in and do like 11. She's like, "Am I doing something wrong?" I'm like, "No, it's actually just wonderful each time that we're discovering things here." Stacey, I think well, there's a couple things that are just like really fortunate and just like about working with Stacey. I think one of the things is she just has these eyes,
Mhm.
and you can just dive into Stacey's eyes, curl up and go to sleep. I mean, you could just look at those forever. But beyond just her physical look, she knows how to manipulate her eyes. And so she had some tricks at the ready where she's like, "Oh, you need me to not just cry but make it bloodshot? Here, I'll do this.
Oh
You
wow.
need me to have it clear and kind of this? Oh, I'll do this." The other thing Stacey brought to the table, there's a pretty intense shot where she's coming right at the camera underwater and saying something that looks intelligible. I was like, "Stacey, can you swim?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah." And I was like, "Can you dive?" And she's like, "Yeah." And then she's like, "Oh yeah, I used to do some underwater modeling. Do you want me to also like say something?" Because I wasn't planning that shot.
Oh
And then
wow.
Stacey is like, "We could just do this." And then I was like, "Oh, we can do that?" Because I figured making that ask of an actress, like hit your mark underwater, don't hit the camera, like get here, then say this. Like that's a lot, but she did it 6 times in a row flawlessly and got better each time.
That's amazing.
And it was yeah, it was just like so Stacey, and it's funny. I wouldn't exactly call her, she's not like somebody who's done a whole lot of like fighting in movies. Um, we had a really wonderful fight choreographer who was also our unit production manager, Crystal Arnett, who really worked with Stacey on movement for the fight choreography, and I thought that was great. But like, it's not like Stacey came in with a whole bunch of like martial arts experience or anything. And so when she busted out with that swimming so precisely, I was just like, wow, that's very, very fortunate. And she was also really down to like get in the dirt and get messy. I remember talking to one of my associate producers, Elizabeth, who is a actress herself, and she's like, it's really good that, I didn't do this movie because I would have killed you if you made me get that much dirt on my body. And Stacey was just like, no, more dirt, let's go. She was in it. I wouldn't say she's a method actress. She's someone who you can just give instructions to, like, do this a little bit more like this. And she listens to it, but like she was willing to go through a lot physically in that role. And she did it. I mean, like for some of it, she had literally no face and she had to trust everybody on set to lead her around by hand. And, and she had no face for hours at a time.
Oh wow.
And that's very, very, very hard to do. Like, I don't know if I could handle suddenly being blind with only being able to breathe through small slits, for my nose. Like, that's scary.
Yeah.
And she was such a pro at that.
Wow, that's amazing. It sounds like everything is just kind of like came together for this film. Um, I want to ask pretty quickly. I'll make sure that this goes at the end of the interview if we have additional questions. But I want to ask you about the ending because is it a happy ending? Is it a sad ending? It is just an ending. Like I'm curious, what your interpretation of it is. I kind of had some thoughts on it, but I'm curious, what the
That's
source.
a very, very good question. And I don't know how much I want to spoil, but
Mhm.
I will say this. There is it happy? Um, there are things about it that are very happy. There are things about it that are very sad. Um, when I had Charlotte write the ending cue before the ending song, the cue we hear just before the ending song, I told her the title of this song is I love you, I killed you, I am you. Um,
That's
and whether or not and whether or not she really did or didn't, the emotion is there.
Mhm.
Uh, so for the ending, there's a lot going on, but there's a couple things that are very, very clear that, we start the movie out with a certain
like power dynamic relationship, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
right, and we end the movie somewhere else.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I could go full on spoiler for you if you want. Like, I don't know, how spoiler do you want me to get?
Let's go spoiler. I'll put a warning up. There will be spoilers. Turn it off if you don't want to know.
Okay, sure. I mean, so Esme leaves alone.
Yeah.
She's sitting there with the knife and looking at that knife, and for about, I don't know, 45 seconds, just sitting there with Hannah there looking at that knife. Does she actually stab Hannah and kill her? That is left to interpretation. She certainly leaves without Hannah.
Yeah.
Before the ending shot, when she leaves, when she's braiding her hair, she's braiding her hair into the same style that Hannah was wearing the entire film. So she takes Hannah's backpack, she leaves with the knife, she takes on Hannah's braid and is walking away alone. When Hannah finds Emily, she is really finding forgiveness. At that moment, when she sees the angel merge with Esme,
Mhm.
which is kind of this weird time loop moment where we're seeing, even though we see it sequentially, it's really kind of happening at the same time for the characters. So when the angel finally merges with Esme, Hannah has found everything for her. She's found everything that she's been searching for. She's found forgiveness.
Mhm.
And she is able to, everything's going to be all right. Esme's going to be fine. They love each other. I found forgiveness. We all understand each other. This is everything I've been looking for. So from Hannah's perspective, she found everything. When Esme sees that demon merge into Hannah, she knows it's time to go. You know,
Yeah.
Hannah's not here anymore. Hannah's gone. And she has come to love her and understand her a little bit, and just realizes how much Hannah is part of her, but she needs to go off on her own now. So for, like I said, two people can experience the same thing. Hannah got everything she wanted. But Esme also lost her mother.
Yeah.
Whether Hannah died right then and there, or was killed, or would die later, she's not in a good spot. Like from Esme's perspective, she's not going to make it out of there. If you look at the angel and the demon and what they represent, you'll notice that the demon, while very frightening, always pushes Esme to where she needs to go at any given moment, and shows her what she needs to do, and leads her to where she needs to go to really come of age and be her own person. So that demon, as terrifying as it is leading Esme to where she needs to go. The angel that Hannah sees, and notice they never see, like they only see one or the other. They don't both see both.
Yep.
The angel is truly something that Hannah is seeing, and it's like, I came here thinking that there was no way out. This was going to end badly, and I'm going to have to kill the thing I love most in the world, just like I had to do before. And all of a sudden, the angel appears, and there's Plan C. And she's like, "Oh wait, I can. This is Plan C."
Yeah.
And she goes and she finds Plan C. In Hannah's world, she found Plan C. So from an outsider's perspective, if you're not the person who's seeing God, maybe it seems really weird and frightening from the outside. But if you're the person who's seeing God, the most terrible things are the most wonderful things, or the most beautiful things, or the most important things. So that's, I guess, does that kind of answer your questions? Was it too spoilerly?
No, I love it. And also I love that it kind of goes full circle to kind of the first question. Like that kind of relates all the way back to the initial thing about where this event can have like two perspectives. You could have like a beautiful perspective and a kind of like horrified perspective, depending on, your past, your upbringing, kind of how you view the world. So I think that's a great kind of way to close this up. So thanks so much for your time. Thanks for your explanations. I love that. I love this film. The film is
that's the most spoilerly I've ever gotten. So I'm a little bit, I don't know, I'm a little bit protective of that, but
awesome. And so the film is Esme My Love. This is Cory Choy, the co-writer and director of the film. It comes to digital and on demand on June 2nd, 2023. Definitely check it out. It is an interesting film. It's a beautiful film, and one that, as we've seen, is open to multiple interpretations. So thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate this opportunity.
That was Cory Choy, the director and co-writer of Esme My Love, which comes to digital and on demand on June 2nd, 2023. It is a beautiful, dark family fairy tale that looks at like the connection between a family and the sins of the past. It's an interesting film. It's a beautiful film. It has fantastic music. I definitely think you should check it out. And now maybe you'll have some more insight after this conversation with Cory. If you like this interview, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.